just hold on to that as long as possible. A perfect jump for me feels like I didn't try very hard at all.
How did you discover that you had a talent for long jump and hurdles?
I want to say it was by accident. I was kind of just going out for the track team in high school, so ninth grade. I didn't have any particular desire to really do track and field. It was mostly just to keep the connections with my friends that I had. And as soon as I tried the 100 and long jump, I realized that I was better than every other girl that I went to try out with. And so it was kind of like I just accidentally stumbled upon it.
And well, your high school was in Alaska.
The track seasons don't last very long at all. They're very short seasons, and it worked out well for me because I was primarily a basketball player. That was kind of my love at the time. And I thought track and field was just fun to compete in, and it most certainly wasn't fun to just go run, to do the warm-ups and to train and stuff like that. So I actually didn't really love track and field till much later on in my career.
Was that when you went to college? Was that Colorado?
Yes, so I got accepted on a scholarship to Colorado State University. And my first year, I had considering I'd come from Alaska, I had maybe 5 or 6 meets tops every year. And I didn't really train for any of those meets. I just played basketball all the way through. And then you go to college, and they expect you to start in September and to train all the way through until outdoor season, which ends in May. I was exhausted. I also had never lifted before. I'd never trained so long in my life, and so the first year of track and field for me was kind of like, why am I doing this? This is the most terrible thing I've ever done in life. I hurt all the time. I feel like garbage. And it really was just kind of a means to an end for me. I was there to get an education. I was competing at UC Berkeley against a girl named Grace Upshaw. And she was one of the best in the United States at the time. And for one round, it was the first time I'd ever jumped 21 feet. For one round, I was beating her. And it was also the first time I had run 11.7 or something like that. I was just like, maybe I am okay at this and I can maybe do something with this. And that was kind of the first time I actually fell in love with the process in the sport.
And do you prefer the long jump out of the two, or that you don't have a preference?
I actually didn't even start hurdling until I graduated college. And so I was a bit of a late bloomer, if you want to say, for hurdling. I hadn't ever hurdled before. I kept saying that I wanted to in college, but I had some injuries, some stress fractures in my shins, and I was already doing the 4x1, the 4x4, the long jump, and the 100, and they kind of didn't want to stress me any more than I was already kind of spread thin with the 4 events. Long jump will always be my baby. It was the first event that I fell in love with. It's gotten me to where I am, to the Olympics, to all the, traveling the world. So absolutely long jump, and then hurdles just kind of came as a close runner-up for sure.
What are your strengths, do you think, as a long jumper?
You have to have speed in order to jump far. There's no way around it, and proper mechanics. But I think my biggest asset was being able to take off correctly and proper mechanics. But a lot of folks reach or they stab or whatever issue they have at the board. But I was always really well at taking off the board and transferring my vertical velocity or my horizontal velocity into vertical height and distance.
So you're saying that was a natural attribute?
It wasn't necessarily natural, it's just when I got it right, I got it really right.
So in a normal competition, you'll be very unlikely to do no jumps?
I'm not a huge fouler necessarily. It was on and off. I mean, I'd say it was average in terms of how many times I fouled versus when I didn't. But we did a lot of drills that just concentrated on putting your foot down, no matter how far in front of the board it is. So I probably had more trouble getting to the board some days than I did fouling. It would just typically be I was behind the board. It would always be like, oh, you could have jumped this if you had just gotten on the board type situation for me.
What kind of mid-air action do you utilise, and how important do you think that is?
Yes, I think it is important to a certain degree, but less important than the takeoff and the landing, and the runway as well. For me, the mechanics in the air is really just a counterbalance measure. You want to prevent forward rotation or backward rotation, and so what you do in the air can prevent either of those things from happening. It almost doesn't really matter as long as you're able to balance yourself out and stay on top of the jump. Because a lot of folks are hitch kickers, you've got the people who hold, hang. I mean, there's a variety of different ways that people jump. And really, at the end of the day, it's how well did they take off and how well did they land it.
How was your progression through through college and then as a professional?
During college, I for sure kind of was at a certain area. And most of my issue was my weight. I was actually a bit heavy for a jumper. I think I don't know how to change it in the system, but I was about 145 pounds, which is way too heavy to be a jumper, and I'm only 5'5". And I was very strong. You couldn't tell me nothing in the weight room. You know, I was throwing weights around, you know, very easily. But I was just too heavy, you know, and I needed to lose some weight. And it just so happened that I went over to Europe to see what I could do after college for just, I want to say 2 months or so. Environment, competing every other day. I lost weight, and I ended up PRing, having a personal best at the end of the season. Granted, all the stressful things going on in my life, and it was simply because I lost the weight. I jumped further.
How do you maintain your weight, or how did you maintain your weight subsequently to that? Specific diets?
No, I've always been a really great eater. I actually had to decrease the lifting I was doing. I'm a person who gains muscle mass very fast. And so we had to curtail how much I was lifting, how I was lifting. And instead of doing, heavy weights at high volumes, it was heavy weights at lighter volumes so that I was maintaining strength without building mass. And so once we did that, I was able to keep my weight in check because I was always eating kind of the same foods. I've never been a junk food person. I don't like chocolate or sweets that much. I mean, you give me a bag of potato chips, and that's kind of my weakness. But as far as sweets and, things like pastries and all that go, I was never into that. So it was really easy for me to maintain my weight. Strength-weight ratio is imperative. It's always going to be better if you're lighter and strong. If you can be just as strong at 145 pounds as you are at 128, it's a whole lot likelier that you're going to be able to run faster, produce more power, therefore jump further.
Any particular key lifts that you'd recommend then, in general, for a reasonably mature long jumper?
Cleans and squats are probably the primary ones that produce power. So if you can get really well, and also training, being able to do it correctly, you can also lift more. So if you're efficient in the weight room and can produce power in the weight room and transfer that power that you've learned how to move weight to be move your body efficiently, you're going to be much more powerful down the runway.
How do you transfer that strength from the weights room into your jumping and running?
Well, you go through cycles. So in both on the track and in the weight room. At the beginning of the season, you start heavier. You want to build a nice solid base, so you want to get in all the weights where it's heavy, it's tedious, it takes longer. And then as you get closer to your season, you lighten things up and maintain the strength that you've gained in the previous months. But in terms of translating the power, I want to say that one's probably the hardest thing to do, because there are a lot of powerful individuals in the weight room who cannot produce the same power on the track just for lack of efficiency. They don't know how to do it. Even just running your warm-up run is imperative to, you have to do it the right way. A lot of folks think that, it's just a warm-up lap. Your warm-up lap has to be perfect, because if you can't do a warm-up lap with proper mechanics, how do you expect to do the drills with proper mechanics? How do you expect to do a sprint practice? And then how do you expect to compete with proper mechanics if you're not doing it from the very beginning? So in all of my training, my coach has always been really, he stresses on the point of, it's not about how much you're doing it, it's how much you're doing it right, in the correct way. You can do it 100 times, but if you're not doing it 100 times the correct way, it's pointless. He's always, you have to do it right from the very beginning. If your jog looks sloppy, your run will look sloppy, your competitions will look sloppy. Everything has to be right. Everything has to be crisp. Everything has to be perfect.
How many times a week then do you train at the moment, or in general, shall we say?
Definitely 4 to 5 times a week. They get 1 to 2 days off. Monday, Tuesday are days that we, go in. Wednesdays are kind of a down day, just to kind of give your nervous system a little bit of a break. So whereas I don't necessarily take the day off, I probably do just non-impact training such as running, swimming, or biking. And then another high day, usually sprint days are on Thursdays. And then Friday, if it's off season, it's an endurance. If it's season, it's pre-meet, getting crisp, doing some, runway stuff, things like that. These videos are just some really good insight to some of the drills, some of the things that we're looking for, athlete perspectives on how it's supposed to feel while you're jumping, in order to just give athletes a real understanding of how to jump far, or how to jump in general. I know there's a lot of videos out there that are focused on, just what do you do, how do you jump farther, but to get the real insight of how it feels is, I think, the key element to a lot of athletes that they don't have when you're just watching a video or a coach that can tell you how it's supposed to feel. And so we've got 3 athletes in various, as in their careers. We've got one that was just a collegiate athlete, myself as a professional, and one that's in transition from collegiate level to professional level. And we can give a wide perspective of just our insight on how it feels. Ryan, who was one of our athletes, he could tell you what it felt like for him, and Asha could tell you what it felt like for her, and for me, and all of us have this different perspective. I think collectively we can reach a broader range of individual athletes